Hello, you wonderful people, and welcome to another episode of Not Too Comic Book. This being a show where it's about TV shows that are adaptations of comic books. For today's episode, I'm going to talk about the latest episode of Batwoman. A lot of really interesting things went down in this episode, so let's break it down. Obviously, we're dealing with the aftermath of the last episode where Luke got shot. Immediately, I thought that went a direction I wasn't expecting, because I was under the assumption Tavaroff is going to be like, oh, Eli, he did it. We had to stop him or something like that. But I guess like the bullets and stuff like that would have painted it there. It would have looked bad on him anyway. So they figured to spin it this way, because in their mind anyway, Luke's a bad guy anyway. Just because later on Tavaroff brings up, it's like, oh, he was just released from jail. To be fair, that's some bullshit. Like, he's suffering the consequences of some asshole cop, power tripping last episode. So now it's like, now he's suffering the ramifications of that, So that's last episode or episode before last, whatever the case may be. It's just like that. Now it's also like, oh, he was trying to steal a car and everything. It's like, first and foremost, it wasn't even a gun on him. You know it was a phone, so that's what makes it so infuriating. I mean, regardless, Tavaroff has always been a piece of shit. It's like, whatever. Once again, no hate to any actors. Like, the fact is, that character just like, it adds to it because the actor, because he's so good at acting like a scummy dude, it's just like, oh, you have such a punchable face because you add in those aspects about the character. So once again, no hate towards the actor. It just means you're doing a really good job portraying this scumbag of a person, So once again, just always have to state that. I always got to remember to separate. I don't want anyone ever make it seem like I'm attacking the actor. I always wanted to say it's just the character itself. But the fact is, they twisted it like that. Like I said, I assumed it was going to be them pointing at Eli. It's like, nah, it was Luke's fault he got shot. We caught him trying to rob, and he pointed a gun at us. And it's just like, and even Jacob's like, that doesn't seem like Luke. I mean, he did work for my daughter, which I'm like, that right there you messed up on because you didn't know the dude you shot worked for Kate. And it's like, right, like my daughter trusted him, so I'm most likely him. But to be fair, and the sad thing is, but it shouldn't come to that. It shouldn't take Jacob knowing that, Luke's more of a keyboard person, to be fair, and this is also, I'm surprised this didn't come up, but to be fair, no one knows about it, but it's like, we know Luke can go down that route when push comes to shove, because he confronted the guy that he believed killed his dad at the time. But that's neither here nor there, but I was worried that somehow that kind of get brought up, but to be fair, no one knows about that except for Luke and the dude, but the dude ended up dying later on, so it's like, no one knows about it then. But my point was, it shouldn't take, Jacob being like, oh, Luke is more of a keyboard person rather than waving a gun around type. So it's like, it shouldn't take that. Like, Luke, who he is as a person should matter more. And I'm sure that applies not only just within the show, but obviously that's the point. Don't look at someone in an isolated incident. Look at them as a whole, because you're going to take someone for just a small bits. And then granted, that's not a very black and white situation. That doesn't apply to everyone, because there are some cases of, oh, you do this really, really bad thing, and it's like, yeah, it's a small part of you, but it's still a shitty thing. So that might be enough to kind of define. It's a case-by-case basis. It's kind of the point I want to make. I don't want to make it seem like that point applies to everyone, but in the context of this, Luke, who he is as a general person, is a good person, and he tried to do the right thing, and he got shot for it. So like Kate and Mary are under the impression it's Eli. So I said Kate. I meant to say Ryan and Mary believe, it's like Eli that did it. So Ryan suits up and goes after Eli, which he's trying to blame Luke. He's like, yeah, this is Luke's fault. I told him not to make me his problem. It's like, yeah, if he hadn't done that, we wouldn't be in this situation. It's like, if he minded his business. I'm glad Ryan knocked him. And I was like, you were talking mad shit. He was just trying to help you, trying to put you on a straight and narrow. You were the one trying to say oh, they were power tripping and stuff like that. But it's like, oh, you're already on some terrible stuff already too. But saying all that too, especially because Luke was trying to help you, And you ran. And that's also the most infuriating thing. He was able to run away. Tavaroff is probably like, he's an innocent white dude. Who cares? We got the evil black guy. You can't help but look at it that way. But it's also like, well, he saw what we did. I let him go because he knows that if he says anything, we'll find him. So maybe that's the justification for it. Or maybe it's just that Tavaroff is just a racist piece of crap that's like, he's fine. We got the bad guy anyway. It's just, power tripping and stuff like that. So, all the while, with this, Ryan tried to go after Tavaroff to get him to admit. Like, I like that though. Like, also, like, she's more well trained than you guys because she easily took him down, but then his buddy had to run her over with a car. So obviously they're bringing Sophie into the fold about, you know, getting this reveal, but obviously the footage is released and it shows him with a gun in his hand. Like, what, they photoshopped a gun in his hand, and it's like Sophie was almost like, she kind of looks down because even before Ryan jumped on it, I was like, does Sophie know what that is? And it seems like she is somewhat aware, but Ryan's like, whoa, but the fact of the matter is, why would you know something about unless you take advantage? She's like, I left the crows after I found out everything. It's like, no, you left them just yesterday. So it ain't like it's been that long. Like, the fact is, you know that the crows have been up to shady stuff like this, but you stay beside them anyway. And she's like, don't blame me. I didn't shoot Luke. It's not my fault. She's like, I'm not blaming you. I'm blaming me. She's like, I told him, he was a bystander. I told him about his privilege and stuff like that. Because, yes, that was a whole conversation about their different experiences of, like, how they cope with, like, right, being black and, how they interact with the world. That was the whole conversation last episode. But, because she had called him out for, like, right, you're, because he kind of stays on the sidelines. He chooses not to act, even though she's the one, Ryan's more so the one that kind of goes, like, nah, when she sees BS, she calls it out. And she can be very, like, forceful, when it comes to that point. Whereas Luke was more so, like, taught, like, keep your head down, yes, sir, no, sir, type of thing, And she blames herself because she's like, because he took action, because I told him that he didn't, and he was trying to do the right thing, and he put himself out there because of me, and he got hurt. So Ryan's like, he can't die, and if he dies, it's because of me. I need Luke to survive. Because obviously Mary's like, no, we got a surefire way. I was like, right, I completely forgot we got the Desert Rose. They're trying to get to Luke, but sadly, there are two bodyguards out front, because I think because of that, like, because especially with the circumstances of Luke having a gun and everything, they're going to potentially bring up charges on him the moment he wakes up. So I guess that's what they don't want anyone going in there. I'm surprised Mary didn't just go to her dad, but considering the circumstances, maybe she felt like she couldn't go to her dad. I mean, to be fair, maybe she kind of felt like I couldn't speak to my dad, but maybe Sophie can. Maybe Sophie decided to do that on her own, whatever the case may be. Mary decides to get some help, and lo and behold, Spider-Wolf, Evan, comes into play, and he is able to dose Luke. I think it also helps because it's like sticking a middle finger to the crows, considering what they did to him. So, but also I love as he was excellent. He's like, also, you didn't tell me Luke was such a cutie pie. And it's like, oh, he is pretty adorable, isn't he? But nevertheless, I'm glad that kind of worked out. It's like, right, because I was thinking, like, because I guess it would have been a lot harder for Ryan to do it, because that probably would have gotten a lot of attention, especially because, like, Evan's really good at the stealthy part, so he nailed that. I think a bat could have done it too, but he's a little less he's a lot more inconspicuous and was able to kind of make it work. So, regardless, working with Sophie though, there is a server where, like, the original body cam footage is, but it gets deleted at 3 a.m. So Sophie goes in and confronts Jacob about everything. And it is a situation of, she brings up the fact is there was a rapist, and it's like, we all knew he was guilty of sin, but there just was, circumstantial evidence. And then she's like, when all this abundance of evidence proving he was guilty just popped up, I didn't ask questions then. It's like, yes, we put away a bad guy, and Jacob's trying to say, yeah, and how many other lives were saved because of it? And she's like, I get it, but we broke the law. We broke the law doing what we did. Yes, he was a bad guy, but now that same thing is being used on an innocent person. Like, Tavaroff isn't the agent you think he is. He's a scumbag. The use of force the way he did in that church against all those people, especially when Batwoman was working so hard to save all those people. She was curing all of them, but it's like, nah, he's so certain he knows the way things need to be handled type of thing. But hearing all that, and I thought it was a really, like, he hasn't looked back. Like, I think this was a wake-up call Jacob needed to kind of see the crows for what they were. Because, yes, he talked about it. He started this because what inspired him to start the crows was what happened to his children. It's like a school bus going off the edge, and obviously a family getting run off the road. He says that near the end of the episode, referencing what happened to Kate, Beth, and his wife. He wanted to kind of make this world a safer place, but, somewhere along the way, the crows lost their way, And so he confronts Tavaroff, And it's like, right, like the fact is, you know, because Tavarov's like, oh, like how many times did you kind of cross the line or whatever? It's like, I know about you and your posse. The fact of the matter is, you're going to be off. You're going to like hand over your badge and gun while I investigate. He's like, okay, I understand, sir. And he pistol whips Jacob. I was like, whoa. You have gone off the deep end. Now for him, it's like, no, because if this gets found out, we're going to go to jail. And probably also in his mind, he probably thinks Jacob's weak anyway. It's like, nah, we're doing what's necessary. We cross whatever lines, you know. It's like, hell, you were going after Batwoman last season full force. You unloaded a whole bunch of bullets at her. It's like sometimes this unit would use extreme force when necessary. You know, once again, it's just trying to dig up all that like dirt against Luke and using that as pass. While Ryan's trying to find the file to prove Luke's innocence, she has to go and save Jacob because he was almost dead, and she whooped every one of their asses. Felt real bad for that bastard. Well, not really felt bad for him, but it's like, ooh, yeah. It was more like a, oh, it sucks, but at the same time, it's like 90% of me is like, yeah, you got what you deserve when she like stabbed him in the hand with a pin. I was like the battering to the hand. That's a classic. We didn't have that, but you know, she threw it at near one of the agents' heads, but proceeded to kick their all the asses. Also like, right, you guys act like you're badasses. She sweeps the floor with you because you all suck and pale in comparison. There was also like this part, me being like how far I go, like, you know, I don't have a code when it comes to this superhero stuff. Is the fact is I was kind of hoping like Jacob would try to quote unquote save Batwoman and end up pushing Tavarov out the window. I know, it's like, Jesus, Michael, I know. It's just like, I thought that's where things were going to go, but it's like, oh no, just knocking his ass out is good enough on its own, you know? But obviously Jacob is saved, and she's like, reminds us, like, I'm here saving you when I should have been getting the evidence to clear Lucas Fox's name. Like, I get it. You started off with this with the best of intentions, but the fact is, the crows have gone crooked. I've given you the gasoline to basically match. It's up to you to burn this all down, or you're just as bad as them. So later on, he makes a conference, and he calls a conference, and he announces, like, obviously the ones being responsible, the fact it's Luke's name, and it's like, the footage is gone, but you have my word. I'll even testify to it that Luke is innocent, that they shot him, he was unarmed. And it's like, well, what does that say about you? What does that say about the crows? And he's like, he talks about why he started him, but for him, it's like, it got lost along the way. So from this point on, because I'm the head and the majority shareholder, I am dissolving the crows, which is going to be interesting because of that. Granted, you could definitely see this going sideways. There could definitely be some crows who might not feel like, oh, they were probably like, they might not have been part of Tavarov's crew, but there might be other crows that were like, nah, we enjoyed this and we have power and position, and now that's all gone. I mean, Mary even kind of gave Deuce middle fingers to like those two guys, being like, my friend Luke is hurt because of you guys and everything, so kind of called them out on the BS as she walked away. So we've been seeing it more and more about how the crows are power trippy. Obviously, hell, a crow was connected to like Lucius Fox's death, so there's that. So it's only right that it comes down to an end like this. I guess we're going to see a lot more GCPD going forward. I mean, to be fair, like, the crows were always a militaristic, like, you know, they were always like hired security, like they were paid security. So what does that mean for all? That's also interesting too, because we do know that there are other investors like Black Mass, Roman, Sionis, like, we know he's an investor, but other investors as well. How happy are they going to be about that towards Jacob? I mean, Roman might be happy because he wanted the crows to take it down anyway. He blames him for his daughter's death anyway, Cersei's death, so there's that. So I'm sure he's going to be happy about this situation, because it's like, right, everything Jacob built is burnt to the ground. Not unless some other group is going to come in and try and take that position, but I think we're just going to go back to relying on a CPD. I said CPD. Where am I getting that from? Oh yeah, I think the Crossbell Legend of Hero games. That's where that came from. But the GCPD, which we know that the GCPD has had its own crookedness in most Batman continuity. So who knows, like, how the city's going to feel about that. But in the aftermath of it, like, obviously Luke is healing up, but he hasn't woken up yet, because it's a subconscious thing, because he doesn't want to come back yet. Because obviously when he, like, in that world, he's, you know, in between life and death, and he sees his dad, which I was like, oh, are we about to see Lucius Fox? I was like, ooh, I wonder who they cast as Lucius Fox. We never get to find out. because Bruce pops up, which I'm like, that's the benefit of having cast the Bruce Wayne in this continuity, because he can pop up like this, whether it is flashbacks or whether it's like we need him for something like this or something in the future, which I've thrown out my thoughts about how they'll potentially close out the Kate Kane storyline, at least for now, potentially how Bruce might fit into that. I've kind of made a video a while back, a couple months back, about that, so we'll see. But it's like, yeah, he's there. He's a manifestation of Luke's consciousness of like, right, if you go see your dad, you're accepting death, or you can go back. And so he's there to kind of stop Luke, and it's like at the end of the day you have to decide. And Luke's like, it's not fair. And he's like, you're right, it's not fair. The fact of the matter is, whether it's working under Batman, whether it's working under the two Batwomen, you've saved so many lives, and at the end of the day, you got shot just for being black. It's like, no matter what good you're putting out in the world, they're still going to be bad. It's kind of Luke's position on it, because he's like, no matter what we do, like, he's like, because I can never understand why you walked away, why you put up the cape. He's like, because it's too depressing. The fact of the matter is, we do all this good, and for what? For this to be bad back in the world, for things like this to happen, because despite everything, it didn't stop him from losing his father. It still didn't stop like so much terrible stuff not just happening to him, but to the people he cares about. Everything with Kate, because he believes Kate's gone. So it's just one blow after another, and so Bruce was even telling him, is like, right, you're healing right now, but at the end of the day, you have to make a choice before the choice is taken away from you. But we find out at the end, Luke is like, actually, I want to be with my dad. I don't want to go back. He's like, well, that's your choice. Sadly for Luke, it was too late. The choice was already taken from him. And I think that's going to mean a lot going forward for Luke. That, like, he chose not to come back, but he came. So on some small level, and eventually I think it will build up, I think he's going to resent Ryan and Mary for saving him, but it's like, they're never going to regret saving his life. Even if he wanted to give up, they weren't. But the fact is that he was, that might, I don't know, that's not a, like, that's a hard thing, dude. He gave up. He didn't want to come back. Like, I don't want to even make it just sound like giving up. He made his choice, and that choice was taken away from him. Like, I was kind of hoping Luke would choose to come back on his own, but he didn't, and it was too late, and the choice was made for him. And it's like, it was a chance to be reunited with his dad. He was just tired of the way this world is. Like, but that also presents, like, him coming back. He's going to be very pessimistic about the world. He's not going to believe that anything is going to be worth it in the end. That, like, the hope that he helped bring into this world, he's kind of lost in himself. Maybe Ryan and Mary will be able to restore it, but I don't think that's going to be easy. I think we're going to see it. It might not be like, it might be a little subtle towards Ryan and Mary, but us as the audience will probably be able to clearly see any, like, negative feelings he has towards them. Whether he'll realize it or not, he'll probably be, like, subconsciously, like, a little, like, towards them. Hell, for all we know, he might make it super obvious how he feels, but that's something to be considered. They're both happy to have him back because they both need him so much, so we'll see how that ultimately ends up playing out. Another side of this episode is obviously Alice going through all the files of dear sweet, the late Dr. Rhymes, and ends up finding her dad's file. And she's like, honestly, I'm not going to look through that. Finds Kate's file, but she also finds Mary's file, which are like, why was she interested in Mary? It's like something for Roman. I'm like, what the hell is that about? So Ocean comes back, like, right, we got to dispose of the body. It's like, oh, do you know whose daughter it is? He's like, I have no idea. And then she shows it Kane. He's like, riddle me this. It's like, yeah, I'm sure Riddler's not going to appreciate you having murdered his daughter. To be fair, Ocean's like, well, we covered our tracks so none of it leads back to us. So I wonder, where is he? Like, is he in Blackgate or something? Because he wasn't in Arkham. I'm trying to remember during the Elseworld crossover. There was, like, some of his stuff is there, but that doesn't, I mean, that could have been from, like, the past times he was at Arkham. Because I don't, I don't remember if I think we might have seen his room in Arkham, but that doesn't mean, like, in between the Elseworld crossover and now. I mean, like I said, that could have been his old room, and now he's at Blackgate, because I don't know why. I wonder what distinguishes that, like, why some villains end up at Blackgate and what others end up at Arkham. That's a whole thing. I mean, neither one is really good. I mean, depends on who's running things. I mean, is there a Hugo Strange in this continuity? Can't trust him at either one that he's at. I think he's typically at Arkham, but I mean, I think he can be at Blackgate sometimes. It depends on the continuity and stuff. because Blackgate is where Arkham Origins takes place, which Black Mask is. I think he's the main villain of that. I've only played like a tiny bit of Origins. I've seen bits and pieces of like, I think I've seen all of. I've never played it, but I have seen someone play through all of Arkham Asylum and most of City and like almost none of Night. I've seen bits and pieces, but that's about it. And that was like years ago. Like I said, I'm going on this huge tangent and stuff like that, but it's just kind of interesting. Maybe there'll be some tie-ins in that regard of just like the whole Blackgate, Black Mask thing. But circling back to it, obviously Ocean's not going to help her with the whole like trying to find the trigger word to restore her sister back to being her sister, and so Alice kind of decides to handle this on her own and actually goes and meets Mary. And Mary's like, what are you even doing here? It's like, right, so you don't even know Cersei. Oh, well, and kind of leaves. And it's like, why are you here? It's like, well, okay, so Black Mask, it turns out, might hate the Kane family more than I do. And I'm sad to admit that it also includes you. So watch your back, Steppy. Might want to stay close to Batwoman. But in that moment, she was like, whoa, wait. I know that you were in love. Like, because it's like, wait, you came to warn me out of the kindness of the empty hole that is where your heart's supposed to be. And she's like, I know you're in love. And she's like, maybe if you could have, she's like, despite me hating you, everyone deserves love. Because maybe if you could have found love first, like, who knows what that could have done for you. And I think hearing that actually kind of stings a little bit. But also it's like, oh, like, even because Mary has all the reasons in the world to hate Alice. I mean, same thing for Ryan. You know, both of them lost their moms because of her. But obviously she meets up with Ocean again, and it's like, right, you've made up your mind about what you're going to do. But for her, it's like, I want it all. Like, if you really love me like you say you do, because he's like, despite you being so complicated, so frustrating, I do love you. Our love actually is the reason why our memories were able to come back to us. But he's like, she's like, if you loved me, you basically want me to have everything. She's like, I want to have you, but I also want to have my sister back. So despite all her hard feelings towards her sister, you know, it's no longer, oh, I want her back to kill her. It's like, no, I just want her back. I need her back, you know, because it's like, it's probably like, you know, not being able to feel that other half of your heart that, you know, that kind of beat in, you know, in sync with your own to a certain extent. You know, that's me just trying to be all poetic about it. But it's like, you know, it's like a phantom limb. You know, it's like you're just not quite right without it. You know, and she's not quite right without, like, regardless of the resentment she has for her sister and everything, she probably doesn't feel quite right. So she meets up with Jacob at the end of the episode and makes it clear she's like, right. So it's not like the Crows were all that good at their job if I can keep breaking into this parking lot. And she's like, I'm going to tell Dad, Kate's alive. She's like, oh, not this. It's like, no. She's being controlled by Black Mask. We are going to do what you and Kate failed to do when it came to me. We're going to do whatever it takes to bring her back, you know? So likely yet unlikely combination here. So they're going to be working towards that. I am curious what Roman's obsession with the Kane family is. I mean, because we know he blames not only Batwoman for what happened to Cersei, but also the Crows. It makes you wonder, like, was there falsified information that led to her getting arrested and eventually put in Arkham Asylum in the first place? Once again, I brought up before, I'm wondering, is this a Kate and James situation like in Arrow, where it was like, nah, he was tricked into believing that Oliver Queen, aka Green Arrow, killed his son, when in actuality he didn't. I'm curious what's going to, you know, if it's that or whether it is a thing. Because it's not, because understandable, like, wanting to destroy the Crows seems like, oh, I want to make the Kane family suffer because that's Jacob's baby. So, but while he's getting all this information about the Kanes and stuff like that, turning Kate Kane into his own daughter, I guess it's poetic. It's like, I lost a daughter, now you're going to lose one so she can become mine, type of thing, which is twisted in its own right. But I think for him, it's like, for Roman, it's like, that's probably like poetic justice. So it's definitely going to be interesting to see what goes on out front. It's interesting that Alice ended up telling Jacob, didn't tell Mary. I'm wondering, finding out if that Kate's alive, will that change Luke's perspective? Like I said, if it plays out the way I think it is, and I think, considering the circumstances, I highly believe it will play out that way, of him kind of resenting everybody because he didn't want to come back. We'll have to wait and see ultimately how everything ends up playing out. going forward into the next episode. But really, that's all I'm going to talk about. Until the next time we meet, be happy, be safe, live life to the fullest and enjoy it. Good day and goodbye.